In a 10 Princess Quest. The whole Princess Quest thing, its purpose was to lock Vanny away and prevent her from regaining control of her own body. So why did William create or allow for the creation of a fail-safe that allows her to escape? I mean, like, sure, they didn't expect a random kid to come along, figure it out, maybe, but given the track record of Afton and his plans, you'd think that he would have smartened up after at least 50 years. I don't understand. That's like having a self-destruct button on the bomb that you wanted to make sure nobody could stop. Or if Superman had like a kill me button, or just like had like a free kryptonite vending machine that he just put out in the middle of Metropolis. It's stupid. Like, if you want something to work, why give it a possible way to fail? One of the dumbest things that William has ever done. But he's also so goddamn lucky that it didn't backfire canonically. Seriously, what's the point behind having a way to undo your evil plans? This could just as reasonably actually been the canon ending to the game, even though we play as a kid the size of a 4-year-old. And the fact that it wasn't the canon ending, it's pure luck the way that that didn't happen, okay? Just like bury the third machine if you insist on doing this. And at 9, Vanessa. Possessing Vanessa itself was certainly one of the more messed up things that William did, okay? I mean, it kind of sounds weird, you know, and also extremely unrealistic. Like, this guy just pops up in your VR headset, then takes over your body after you collected 16 digital VHS tapes, or cassette tapes, I guess technically. But then after he takes over your body, you end up killing for him, okay? That's messed up. And like, not even kind of, that's incredibly messed up. But also, like, how? I mean, like, she knows what's going on too. She actively talks in hushed tones about how she can't talk to her therapist about it. But like, Afton got lucky with specifically was that Vanessa has no willpower to actually sacrifice for the greater good, okay? I mean, like, at this point, I feel like it's fairly safe to infer that Jeremy from FNAF AR didn't go crazy because he just saw Glitch Trap. I think it's fairly reasonable to say that he got possessed. At this point, Tape Girl hadn't broken up Glitch Trap into the tapes yet, and he was probably just able to possess whoever he wanted. So if Jeremy did get possessed, and the possession worked in a similar way to that it did to Vanessa, Jeremy would at times be sentient and in control of his own body. So if he knew about Glitch Trap, maybe he didn't cut his face off because he was freaking out. Maybe he did it to try to kill the monster that was inside him. And at 8, Springlock suits. The Springlock suits in general are also something that William and even Henry both got extremely lucky with. Like, while Henry may not have like designed the Springlock suits, he certainly let Afton create them and then allowed for their use in the restaurants despite them being incredibly dangerous to employees, only putting them out of commission when someone eventually got hurt and not actually being proactive because, you know, they are literal death machines. You make separate animatronics and then you have separate costumes, okay? That's the right move, that's the smart move, that's the safe move. But these so-called businessmen thought, yeah, I'll put the safety of my employees at risk by making them wear a hot as balls suit filled with robot parts that even with the slightest bit of moisture will shoot those robotic parts right back to where your bones are. What can possibly go wrong? Like, you think that Willy Wonka has OSHA violations? Imagine FNAF's OSHA violations. Oh wait, actually, you don't have to, because we already did a whole list on that. Be sure you go check it out. But seriously, the fact that nobody sued them because they were being put in these things instead of, like, you know, much safer and cheaper options of, you know, a fabric suit is insane. And it's 7, arrested. Okay, let's look at this logically, alright? Henry knew what was going on with Afton, and that Afton had some shady scenarios cooking in his brain. Otherwise, he wouldn't have added the green wristband that we see on Charlie in Security Puppet, right? Well, if he knew that this man was up to something and was fearing for his daughter's safety because of it, so much so that he adds extra security for her, why didn't this man call the goddamn police and say, hey, so William Afton is the one that's been offing the kids that you're looking for? I don't know. Like, sure, maybe you didn't have any proof, but anonymous tips, they're gonna go off it anyway. Plus, you could have made it so that they were keeping an eye on him, or gotten the police to investigate him a little bit further, but you didn't. And instead, you did a whole load of other shit that in reality didn't do anything to stop William. Okay, I mean, like, yeah, you put him on ice and out of commission for 30 years, but only 30 years. This man could have actually stopped him. You could have put an end to it, but instead you kept your mouth shut. That's Afton's plot armor working overtime with no extra pay. Like, that plot armor should be getting time and a half plus paid vacation and maternity leave, but it's not. Like, come on. Instead, it's just cowering in the corner, worried about getting fired and too scared to speak up for itself.
Number 6, Mrs. Afton? Mrs. Afton contributes to one of the biggest WTF moments in all of FNAF, when we learn, or at least we think we learn, she was perhaps a woman whom William Afton denied having a child by, and at the same time learn that he feels sad in regards to the loss of her, well, potentially, possibly making Ballora in her image. I think the thing that is most confusing about these revelations is that there are a lot of clues that we get in regards to her possible existence without her existence ever really being confirmed, and with these so-called clues not even really making sense when we put them all together. We get a few hints about her existence that don't really add up, and even, possibly, I would say, conflict with each other. Like, if Vlad is supposed to symbolize William, this would imply that he didn't really want anything to do with his children, or really his partner in the end, but then he possibly mourns her loss in terms of other clues that we get. So he doesn't want to take responsibility for his kids, but he misses her. If he misses her, why not just like be with her and, you know, like just take some responsibility? And if he doesn't want to be with his kids, why does he keep them around? It seems that he was at least taking care of Elizabeth at one point. And he also seems to leave like a bit of a trail of breadcrumbs for Michael to follow, so what's up with all that?
Halfway through into number 5, Ice Cold Captive. Gregory in the Faster Blast ending actually orders the robots to disassemble Vanny since she just ordered them to disassemble Freddy. But like, disassembling a robot and a human are two very different things. Okay, trust me, I would know. I'm surprised the robots even listened to him. Adding on to that, the fact that Gregory is willing to kill Vanny here, it's pretty messed up, especially given that like most people assume that he's 10 or 11, which doesn't really seem to make sense. Either way, you could argue that he doesn't know any better, but clearly he does. Okay, this kid is able to destroy all 3 animatronics without a moment's hesitation, use their upgrades on Freddy, he's willing to kill Vanny despite seemingly knowing her like we see in the best ending, and then he burns Burn Trap multiple times to make sure he doesn't take over Freddy. Okay, what the living hell is this kid doing? Like, how was he raised? How is he so nonchalant about literally doing all of this? This guy kills Vanny and then only gets emotional when he has to go talk to Freddy, who is destroyed. Dude, Vanny is bleeding out not 3 feet from you. She is torn to shreds and you're crying over a robot that can be fixed? Something isn't right about this kid. He's supposed to be the captive here, but he's the one putting everyone else in danger, I swear. In it for Recharge. What's the deal with airplane food and Glamrock Freddy and needing to recharge every 5 minutes, okay? Like, in the game sense, time isn't moving when I'm running around for 5 hours since I haven't actually progressed the story. So if this animatronic is supposed to need to recharge every hour only, why is this such an issue? And why does he only use power when we're actually piloting him like a mech? If this is the case, shouldn't this man also be losing power when we summon him to grab us from the 3rd basement floor? Like, what? Why not? And why does he need to recharge but seemingly all the other animatronics don't? I never see Chica, Roxy, or Monty in a recharge station. Okay, even if you are around when they should be, when the hour hits. Okay, it's stupid, it's confusing, and it doesn't make any sense. It's almost like Freddy is doing this to us on purpose. Either because he thinks that it's funny, or maybe he really is working for Vanny, but needs to gain our trust and make excuses for why he can't be around us all the time, so that he can just go and give her the information, or why he can't just like, why we can't hide inside of him all night, okay? There's something fishy going on with this animatronic, and I swear in the next game we're going to figure out that he betrayed us off screen. Or at least in the DLC we're going to figure that out. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Destruction. And isn't it convenient that there is a way to break every other animatronic that isn't Freddy? Okay, that leaves the animatronic broken in such a way that we can remove whatever aspect we actually needed to upgrade Freddy? Hell yeah it is. It's so convenient, in fact, that there is somehow a way to break them that just works perfectly for their personality, and the perfect amount of the animatronics as well. That works the first time. And even with Chica, okay, we push her into a goddamn trash compactor and somehow don't get crushed ourselves despite her grabbing onto us and pulling us with her. We only get pulled down into another area of the Pizzaplex that we can still get back to the Pizzaplex through, and you know, we weren't pulled into a thing that crushed our skulls. So yeah, needless to say that looking at this logically, it makes absolutely zero sense that any of this actually happened. Okay, we didn't even need to crush the animatronics, and instead we could have just chilled in Freddy's room until 6 AM when the doors opened. And ultimately, in at number 2, staying until 6. Speaking of which, Glamrock Freddy straight up encourages Gregory to risk his life in order to get out of the Pizzaplex, when in all honesty, the safest thing to do would have just been to keep him in your stomach or in your green room until 6 AM, especially after the door closes and he was definitely stuck, which it makes no sense whatsoever if Freddy is really meant to be protecting Gregory. There was no need for the whole daycare secret escape hatch thing. You could have just gone back the way you came and everything would have been fine. You wouldn't have been suspicious since you would have at least appeared to be like you listened to Vanessa after you saw her in the healing area and went actually back to your room, and then Gregory would have been safe, especially after you knew that there was some crazy bunny running around the pizza place looking to slaughter him. So yeah, if Glamrock Freddy is like supposed to be protecting him, he did a horrible job at protecting this kid. Okay, I don't understand. You can think of all the excuses you want for him, but if Gregory had just waited in Freddy's green room, everything would have been fine. That's it. That's period. And finally, in at number 1, probable betrayal. I know that nobody wants to believe me on this, okay? We all want to hold out hope that finally one of the animatronics is going to be good and trying to help us, but Glamrock Freddy, after everything on this list, is almost certainly evil and just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. We've made a whole video about that, okay? And now, honestly, this one is kind of about that too. This guy makes some hella sketchy choices throughout our entire time at the Pizzaplex and only makes things worse for us. He takes us to get healed despite us saying no and having a limited time to leave, which ends up making us get locked inside the Pizzaplex. We also just sit in the booth and don't actually get healed, by the way, okay? He was unable to access the main Pizzaplex network despite having no reason to be disconnected, since at this point he wasn't suspected of helping us. And after Vanessa leaves Freddy without his head and parts in service, she sees him fully reassembled in less than 5 minutes and doesn't question it, like I said. Almost as if it was the plan the whole time. There's no way that he could have been put back together normally, and they just don't care, okay? The only way that this makes sense, any of this makes sense, is that if Freddy is secretly evil, and maybe even he doesn't know it. Maybe Afton is like in the back of his mind just like waiting to come forward.
How is it possible that it's almost been 9 years and there is still more in the franchise that makes us go WTF, that makes us nod and say, oh, of course, that makes so much sense.
Because it's FNAF.
Because it's FNAF. Welcome back, my fellow gamers. I'm Amanda.
I'm Connor. Today we're looking at the most WTF moments from the series, because there's a lot of them.
There's so many.
Let's do it.
Number 10, Gregory. Gregory. Why? How? Who? There are more things that don't make sense here than do make sense. Gregory is a character that we play in Security Breach, and he really just does not make a lot of sense. Is he living in the Pizzaplex? Where are his parents? Does he have parents? Is he an animatronic? We have a ton of questions about this character, and most of the answers that we have, well, I mean, we haven't really gotten any answers, actually, I feel like. Instead, we have a protagonist whose origins are completely unexplained and who also seems oddly sadistic as well, especially for like a kid. I don't know why Gregory was introduced. I don't know how he connects to the larger story or if he's even supposed to at all. There doesn't seem to be any major reasons why they made him the protagonist of this game, other than obviously wanting to let us play, I guess, as a younger character, which, you know, given the context of the franchise and the fact that most of its fans are younger, I guess makes sense. But from a narrative perspective, there isn't much explanation given here. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Gaming, show us you love us by clicking that like.
In at 9, Glitch Freddy. Okay, hear me out. It seems just highly convenient that we just so happen to be at the show where in Security Breach, Freddy glitches out. And that seemingly, as we're led to believe, this glitch is what causes him to refuse the Afton virus code. Like what? How? We're supposed to believe that this glitch is caused by Gregory, given the security threat message that pops up next to the silhouette of a kid. But if that is true, and we caused the glitch, how is a kid in a group full of kids a security threat? When people are allowed in the Pizzaplex all the time? How is it this one kid is like, no, that's a bad one? Like, sure, he didn't have a guest profile, but if Gregory was the glitch, wouldn't Freddy have glitched again after he scanned us? I don't know. Honestly, I think the hardest part to believe about this is, strangely enough, the fact that we were able to climb inside Freddy while he was glitching out on stage without anyone noticing. Like, sure, maybe he wasn't on stage when we climbed in, but a glitched animatronic is surely going to have some form of personnel around them so that they can get fixed, especially when they're the namesake of the series and the franchise. Restaurants. Like, come on.
Number 8. Unplayable areas. In Security Breach, there are a few things that bothered players and that didn't really make sense to them. And I'm not even talking about the narrative in this game here, which really was wonky at best and is like a whole other story. Just even in terms of gameplay, there was a lot of stuff that was kind of weird. Namely, the map. And no, I'm not talking about the actual map you could go into and try and navigate in game, although that too, honestly, was not great and was kind of weird. I'm just talking about the map in terms of the actual Pizzaplex itself and its locations therein. While there was lots to explore, it seems like not all of the locations were actually integrated into gameplay. Like, there were places you could explore, but then there was just like nothing really there for you to do in terms of like the actual story of the game. So while the map feels pretty massive, it also in a way ends up feeling kind of empty.
And it's 7, calling the cops. Let's look at this logically, alright? Henry knew what was going on with Afton, and that Afton had some shady scenarios cooking in his brain. So if he knew that this man was up to no good, and he was fearing for his daughter's safety, why didn't he make the call to the police and be like, hey man, so this William Afton guy is like thinking about killing kids, and probably is the one that's been killing the kids that you're looking for. Like, I mean, sure, maybe you didn't have proof, but you could have certainly tipped them off, and then they could have, you know, found the proof. Come on, they could at least keep a closer eye on him, but you didn't. And instead, you did a whole load of other that in reality didn't do anything to stop William. I mean, you did one thing that put him out of commission for like 30 years, but again, that was only 30 years. You could have stopped him. You could have actually stopped him in his tracks, but instead you chose to keep your mouth shut. That is Afton's plot armor working overtime with no extra pay. And at 6, leave it to fate. FNAF 6 was supposed to be the end of the Afton story. I was so looking forward to it. That's what Henry sets out to do in this game. Make sure that nobody remembered what happened there. However, this also figured that the first fire didn't work, so a second one surely will. And in fact, he was so confident in this plan for whatever goddamn reason that he actually let himself die in the process to leave nobody remembering what happened. But he didn't think that even if himself, William, and all their kids are dead, the parents of the victims still know. And as we learned from Security Breach in the duffel bags, there are other parents who remember it too. Like, it's a whole thing in the FNAF universe. They cite the missing children from the Pizzaplexes happening again. If Henry had stuck around to see if the job was really done, maybe William wouldn't have been able to possess Vanny and come back yet again and just kill more people. Henry should have lit the place up, smashed everything that survived, and then maybe you could have offed yourself. But at least make sure the job is done first.
Number 5, lack of Vanny. Vanny was a character that we all got excited for. She was at least alluded to in Help Wanted, and you know, that was a theory when it came to her involvement in this game. And we knew about Vanessa, and then through Special Delivery it was kind of hinted that Vanessa and Vanny may be one and the same, and that Vanessa was being manipulated or influenced by Afton into doing his bidding, revealing a darker side to her. This was also the theory for what would continue to happen in the game Security Breach. And because of that, people thought that Vanessa and Vanny might be, you know, the main antagonist, or Vanny would be anyways, between those two personas. And even better, maybe this would actually be a villain we could actually save. Maybe we'd actually get a villain that gets redeemed. Oh my goodness. And then Security Breach came out, and Vanny didn't do very much. Even the Vanny specific ending that we get is honestly kind of disappointing. We don't even get a Vanny boss battle option really, at least not a playable one. Number 4, upgrading Glamrock Freddy. One of the most messed up things that you do in the game is definitely defeating Glamrock Freddy's friends and stealing their parts to upgrade him. Especially since you generally try to avoid talking to him about like where exactly you got the parts and how exactly that happened. And when you do mention it, you're kind of just like, oh yeah, that happened, don't worry about it. And when it does end up coming out sort of what did happen and where you got the parts, yeah, it's an awkward conversation to have. Glamrock Freddy also seems really hurt that you hurt his friends. Oh, and he's like, they're not in their right minds, they're just innocent victims. And then there is the whole weirdness of how detached Gregory seems to be in regards to his own emotions surrounding the destruction of these seemingly somewhat sentient animatronics. I mean, I feel like he's a little shocked, but he doesn't seem to be distraught at all. And I mean, I don't know if these animatronics, all of them, are specifically sentient, but based on our experiences with Glamrock Freddy, I think it's relatively safe for us to assume they are on some level, right? Number 3, Demise of Roxy. I think one of the most messed up moments in this game is when you need to fight Roxy after you've in essence blinded her and like drastically messed her up. This really was the moment that made me question everything I thought I knew about this animatronic and her personality. Sure, Roxy seems self-centered and egotistical to begin with, but when you see just how devastated she is at the prospect of perhaps no longer being beautiful and being loved and accepted, oh man, that like hits you. It really shows you just how sad of a character this really is. It made me feel for Roxy, and it also made me feel horrible for everything being done to her. Like, I was thinking, dang, I don't want to see this animatronic hurt, but also that's how the game goes, so that's just like a thing that you have to have happen. You have to defeat her. You have to, in essence, kill her with fire. Or, you know, maybe not straight up kill her with fire, but at least stop her with fire. Number 2, it was Afton all along? The reveal that none of us were really hoping for, but I guess some part of us all was expecting to happen. I think the fact that William Afton was the villain behind Security Breach was not surprising, but at the same time it was definitely something many of us were kind of hoping would not happen. Or I think even if you were like, oh, I want William Afton to come back, when it did happen you were like, oh wait, maybe I never wanted that. Because like, why? I mean, William Afton is a horrifying villain, don't get me wrong, but he's also a very dead villain. A dead villain that we thought had been dead for a long time and multiple times over. And yet here we are with a villain that seems to keep coming back no matter how dead he is. He's been spring locked, returned as a restless, rotting corpse. He's been incinerated. He's been a ghost who haunted technology, getting uploaded into a game with his consciousness after he died, and now he seems to somehow be a charred husk looking for a new form. Cool, 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 great, love it. Number 1, Sleepy Time Candy. Ugh, Moondrop, ugh. I don't really mind the energizing candy in this, the sun drop candy, although I do feel like that maybe is sus too, because caffeine and high levels of caffeine and giving that to kids. But the Sleepy Time Candy, that you can give to kids? I really don't know about that. Moondrop is what we often name the nighttime persona of the daycare attendant. This attendant also has its own matching candy, which is named after it and known for helping kids sleep. Or does anyone sleep? Would this candy work on me? Is it not just for kids? There's something really creepy to me about a candy that involuntarily can make you pass out. There's something really creepy to me about a candy that makes you sleep at all, because, well, it could be used for nefarious purposes pretty easily. Honestly, this was probably one of the biggest things in the game that freaked me out, though the Moondrop persona of the daycare attendant in general is just really creepy. That and like when Moondrop is around you get like the nightimey vibes. Oh, I don't like that either. That bothers me.
In at 10 to Rockstar Row. During the so-called interrogation and torture scene in Parts and Service, or at least that's what people are calling it, based on the titles of videos on YouTube, Vanessa questions Freddy about Gregory and accuses Freddy of helping us, which I mean is true, but she shouldn't even have to accuse him. More on that later. After telling him that she's gonna leave him down there until he can get put on a new endo, which doesn't really make sense if his coding is the issue and not the endoskeleton itself, why would she leave to Rockstar Row through Roxy's lift? Why? When she could have easily just come our way and head into the main atrium. That's where Gregory is for the majority of the game, and that's where all the animatronics are patrolling and have been spotting him. It would make more sense to go there than to Rockstar Row, where he was seen maybe twice at this point. Like, I don't know, it seems weird to me. I don't understand. Maybe like the whole logic behind this is that since all the animatronics are out in the atrium, she doesn't need to be there, or maybe she needs to be somewhere where she can get to her Vanny suit quickly, but I don't know. Even if it is Vanessa taking over and not like glitch trap at this point, I still don't get why she wouldn't just go to the atrium. In at 9, Bag of Rocks. Before Vanessa leaves Freddy in Parts and Service, okay, she says that it's so that his casing can be put on a new endo after they probably have someone on the clock who can do it normally. But then after that, she doesn't seem to be suspicious that he's walking around in front of her maybe within like 3 minutes. What? Who would have repaired him if not for, like, if it wasn't Gregory? There's literally no other human in the Pizzaplex, or at least that's alive at this point, and you know, Freddy can't really do it himself. The whole cylinder thing is to protect humans. There are no staff bots in this section, and the only reason that you had to leave him was because nobody else was working. Hello? You there, McFly? Like, why would Vanessa be so chill about Freddy just like walking around in front of her? She literally left him with his head removed, and now she's like, what, assuming that he somehow did it himself, which is literally impossible as he was strapped down. Even if he had done it himself, why wouldn't she see him and then confine him to his room, especially after just accusing him of helping to protect Gregory? Okay, it's something that confuses me like so much, and I found it weird in my first playthrough, so I figured that if we got close to Vanessa, she would pull us out of Freddy, but like, I walked up to her to test it and nothing. She gave absolutely zero shits. Like, why? She's dumber than a bag of rocks at this point. It would have been so easy just to make like that little modification to her code for at least this part of the game, like making her a little bit more dangerous if she saw Freddy, but no, they didn't. In a Princess Quest. The whole reason Princess Quest is a thing in this game was to lock Vanessa away in her brain and prevent her from regaining full control over her body. So why did William create or allow for the creation of a fail-safe in this system that allows her to escape? I mean, like, sure, they didn't expect a kid to come along and figure it out maybe, but first of all, it's an arcade machine, of course I'm gonna goddamn play it, but also given the track record of literally all of your plans, you'd think that Afton would have smartened up after like 40 years at the very least, but he doesn't, okay? It's like having a self-destruct button on the bomb that you plan to use to blow up Gotham City, okay? Or like it's like, I don't get it. It's like if the Joker had a purify water supply button just on him or something, okay? It's dumb. If you want something to work, why give it a way to fail? Or maybe that's just my brain and my perfectionism talking, but again, it's one of the dumbest things that Afton has actually ever done in the series. Like, canonically it doesn't backfire somehow, but that's aside the point. Like, but seriously, why would you have a way to undo your evil plans? A 4-year-old can do this. The fact that this wasn't the canon ending is actually just insane how that didn't happen. Just bury the third machine, at least. God damn. Like, if that's the intention behind it, just bury it and leave it, okay? Fill it with concrete and leave it. Jeez. And at 7, stealing security badges. Not only is Gregory just a really weird kid in general who wears Fazbear merch but also doesn't know that Chica loves pizza, he's also a thief. This guy steals so many things from the Pizzaplex, not even including all the little gift boxes that you can find around that are only optional. He also steals the security badges and ends up getting enough to have level 7 clearance as like a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old or however old he is, okay? It's really unclear. Because like, he can't ride the go-kart alone, and he can fit inside of Freddy's chest cavity, but he can also speak full sentences with proper grammar and stuff, okay? I have no idea how old he actually is, but he is still able to gain level 7 clearance. But like, how are they so readily available for him to steal? And how is it that taking these badges always triggers some event that makes everything worse for him? Like, how are the security guards supposed to like use these badges if that's what happens every time they take it? Or, an even better question actually, how are these security badges laying around in special containers when security should just have their pass with their clearance level on it, like on their belt? Okay, I don't get it. Plus, how does gaining multiple level 1 passes end up adding up to a level 8 clearance? That's all, it's still all level 1, okay? I don't get it. It makes absolutely no sense, and it's almost as if they set it up for him to see how long it would play out or something, or how well he would do. I don't know. And at 6, fire. Okay, so during the true ending, otherwise known as the Afton ending or the Burn Trap ending or whatever the hell you want to yell at me for not calling it ending, we have to fend off Burn Trap's attempts to take control over Freddy by setting him on fire using what I'm guessing are the mechanisms that Henry uses to set the fire in FNAF 6, since this is the same location. However, it's incredibly convenient how we fall into the room that has all of this stuff in it, that it has the monitors set up connected to the cameras in the various rooms that Burn Trap enters exclusively, with buttons buttons that light the fires in the corresponding room that like has the camera on the monitor. Yeah, despite it being far more convenient for Henry to light all of them at the same time, I don't get how this works. Plus, I mean, like, if you think about it, how are these still working? It's clearly been a while, and some of the comments report that the Pizzaplex has been open for at least 4 years, which I don't know if it is accurate because, I mean, it's the YouTube comments. But if it is, these cameras and old-ass computers are still working 4 years after being set on fire that was enough to ruin the building. Not to mention also falling into a sinkhole that would have had to open up underneath it since we have to travel down an elevator to actually get into this section of the pizza place. How is all of this still working after all of that? And if you say that it was Vanny, that even adds more questions, like why make sure the fire systems are working and then they're set to being separate buttons? Plus, why have the computer monitors set up to look at the right area? I don't get it. And how are these these computer monitors are literal dinosaurs. How did they work before the fire, let alone after it? This is the kind of thing that demonstrates the line between luck and intent, because there was no way this many things lined up for him, excluding plot armor, because we kind of need to ignore protagonist syndrome for this entire list. But still, if this was just happening, that would not happen. Never. No way. Halfway through into number 5, parts and service. During the so-called interrogation and torture scene in parts and service from Security Breach, or at least that's what people are calling it when they're talking about it online. It's not really torture, but oh well. Vanessa is questioning Freddy about Gregory and accusing him of helping us, which is true, but she shouldn't have to accuse him, actually, like at all. After telling him that she's gonna leave him down there until they can put his casing on a new endo, which doesn't really make any sense if the coating is the issue and not the endoskeleton, why would she leave Rockstar Row through Roxy's lift when she could have easily come our way and head towards the main atrium? Because I mean, that's where Gregory is for the majority of the game. That's where all of the animatronics have been spotting us, so it would make more sense to go there than to go to Rockstar Row, where he was maybe seen twice at this point. It seems weird to me, but the reason that this is so confusing is because had she chosen to go the more logical route, she would have walked right through the doors that we were hiding behind. So yeah, and it's not like there's much room to hide there either, okay? There's walls on either side that are made of glass. So yeah, she would have seen us running into the charging station or whatever else we did, so yeah.
Number 4, life after death? One of the weirdest things in FNAF, a moment that happens multiple times, is when people seem to be killed, but then they somehow come back to life. Well, there are kind of explanations for this. They are vague at best and don't really make a ton of sense based on, you know, what we know in the real world. I mean, usually people don't die and then like just go on living. If we can even call what Michael and William do afterwards living. It's more like they're kind of undead, honestly. Michael somehow gets scooped and keeps going on, even seemingly getting a job if you believe that he is the protagonist in FNAF 6. And then there is William, who has been spring-locked and burnt beyond recognition and yet somehow survived through digital code and then like even comes back to life physically, or he possibly also survived physically as well. What's happening? What?
Getting close to the end, and in number 3, you're supposed to be on lockdown. Freddy, you're supposed to be on lockdown is the first line that we hear Vanessa say in Security Breach, and honestly the first line we ever hear her say. And it also was the start of a meme. Well, interestingly enough, this conversation also describes how lucky we are in this game. Firstly, if Freddy is supposed to be on lockdown, why is it just Freddy? Okay, is it because he glitched out? Because if that was the case, wouldn't you be glad that he's working again? You know, for like the company's sake? And secondly, it's incredible that Vanny sees Freddy, tells him he's supposed to be on lockdown, and then doesn't escort him back to his room, allowing for him to just roam free afterwards, assuming that he's gonna be listening to her. And then she doesn't even continue the way that she was walking. She scolds Freddy, turns around and goes right back the way she came, facing more towards us, and doesn't notice the feet under the curtain, or the kid that's watching behind them. It's weird. Especially when she knows that Freddy's been searching for us, or he's supposed to be searching for us. So I don't know, it just seems off to me. A whole load of this game does.
Number 2, Circus Baby. One of the most confusing moments for Circus Baby comes in the revelation that she was both made for Elizabeth, but also killed Elizabeth. So why did William make Circus Baby? Did he make her to kill Elizabeth, or what? Because those two things, they don't really seem to make any sense, unless that was his intention the whole time. But then, he also seems to, warn Elizabeth about getting, like, too close to Circus Baby on her own. Unless he did that hoping that, he would reverse psychology her, and that would work because, he actually did want her to go near Circus Baby so she'd be killed. I don't know. I just don't really understand how he could make basically a killer robot for his daughter and how that could ever make sense.
And finally, in at number 1, FNAF AR. This game is a horrible business decision in terms of Fazbear Entertainment. Cause like, why on earth would you make a game where people relive the events that had your CEO kill countless people? Come on. And on that same path of thinking, how are the nightmare animatronics present in FNAF VR? Okay, if we are to assume that FNAF 4 is an actual canon plot point in the series, then these animatronics being presented would be impossible. The only way that this could make sense would be if FNAF 4 specifically was one of the games that Scott's in-universe counterpart made, since, they were trying to rebuild their reputation, since apparently they lost it because of the games. It's because your CEO was a serial killer. But that also calls into question every other game that we've played, because FNAF 1, 2, 3, parts of 4, and even sister location animatronics are in this game. So, which would mean that if they remade FNAF 4 because it was an in-universe game, every other FNAF game before this, before FNAF 6, would also be that, a game. In at 10, closed doors. Okay, so the reason we get stuck in the Pizzaplex in the first place in this game is because we don't make it to the doors before midnight and then they close on us, somehow being unable to open again, despite that being a horrible safety hazard. But that's still awfully convenient for not only the game, but for Vanny and William Afton in general, right? I mean, it's not lucky for us, but this is about the game's luckiest moments. So how did that happen? Well, before the doors close, Freddy sends us to get a pass in order to free him from his green room, and then everything seems to go well for that part. But then, for some reason, without ever mentioning it before, Freddy tells us that he senses that we're broken and that he needs to bring us to medical so that we can get fixed up. Even though we are literally inside of him at the start of the game, and when he pulls us out he scans us, but this is suddenly a new problem. Well, we then get a run-in with Vanessa, and then Freddy fends her off, but other than that, we stay the same. We don't get healed, we don't get a band-aid, we get in the booth, instantly turn around and then start watching the scene in front of us, almost as if it was just to like build our trust with Freddy. After that, Freddy doesn't ever mention how we're broken or injured again, especially since after that little stop, even if you go full steam ahead the fastest you can go sprinting the entire time, you can't make it out the front doors. In 9, you're supposed to be on lockdown. Freddy, you're supposed to be on lockdown is the first line that we hear Vanessa say in this game, and it's also the start of the meeting that I just talked about. The one that we really shouldn't have had because we weren't injured? Yeah, well, interestingly, this conversation actually also describes how lucky we are. Firstly, if Freddy is supposed to be on lockdown, why is it just Freddy who is? Like, why? Is it because he glitched out? And if that is the case, wouldn't you be glad that he's working again, for the company's sake? And secondly, it's incredible that Vanessa sees Freddy, tells him that he's supposed to be on lockdown, and then doesn't escort him back, allowing him to just roam free afterwards. And then she doesn't even continue to go the way she was walking. After scolding Freddy, she turns around and walks back the way she came while she was searching for us, facing even more towards us while we're in the booth, and doesn't notice the feet under the curtain or the kid watching from between the curtains. Weird, right? Especially when she's supposed to be looking for us. I don't know, it just seems off to me, okay? It's like a whole load of this game does. Oh, by the way, if you're liking this video and want to see more weird moments from Security Breach that shouldn't have happened, hit like and subscribe and let me know in the comments. In at 8, Pizza Maker. When we end up getting trapped by Chica, if you don't try to escape through all chips and you try to go the other way, we end up getting stuck in a security office with only one working door, which Chica is guarding. However, we also just so happen to have access to a monitor connected to the online Freddy Fazbear Pizza Maker, an online service where we remotely control a robot to make a pizza that just so happens to lure Chica away from us. That's way too convenient in my eyes. There is no way that we just so happen to run into this office, the one that has access to this despite Freddy being disconnected for the main server for whatever reason. This computer is connected to it. I mean, I don't know how this is possible. This is way too lucky for for this to just be luck. Oh well, okay? I mean, maybe it's not so lucky. The first time I tried this minigame, I got stuck in the tomato sauce machine, and I made some very disturbing step animatronic jokes towards Chica because of it. Actually, no, that was pretty funny. It had 7 paint cans. After starting the game and getting to the free roam section where you like have the tutorial for distracting animatronics, I just want to mention how goddamn lucky that is, okay? Like, one of the animatronics you're going to need to avoid, no matter how damn fine she is and how alluring she is, you still need to avoid her, is literally right there in front of you blocking your path. Yet, somehow, there is also a stack of paint cans randomly on in the middle of a random cart in the hall in front of you. Okay, why? That cart is also just for some reason blocking the hall that I'm sure multiple employees love having to walk around. But you know what? That's fine. It's fine that it's blocking the way because you can knock over the convenient and empty paint cans that are on top of it just so that Chica can come and investigate it. I don't, like, what? She's right next to the door that she ends up using to investigate it, so it's not like she's being inconvenient by taking that way. But like, still, and I get that it's for tutorial's sake, so like, oh yeah, this is how you do it, but like, in the context of their world, that's super lucky. Suspiciously lucky. And it's 6 security access. Gregory throughout his time in this game steals so many things from the Pizzaplex, not even including all the little like gift boxes you can find around the place. He also steals security badges and ends up getting enough to have level 7 clearance. It's like a 4-year-old or however old he is, okay? Doesn't matter in this case. It's really unclear how old he is or how tall he is because he can't ride the go-kart alone, but he can fit in Freddy's cake cavity, but he can also speak full sentences with proper grammar and knows more words than I do. Like, again, no idea how old he is, but no matter what, how is he able to gain level 7 clearance? How are these so readily available for him to steal? And how is it that taking these badges always triggers some form of event that makes everything worse? How are the security guards supposed to use these badges if this is what happens every time they take it? Or you know what, an even better question, how are these security badges just laying around in like really special containers when the security should just have them on their belt with their normal clearance level, okay? Because getting multiple level 1 passes doesn't end up adding up to a maximum of level 8 clearance. That's still level 1. It's just a lot of level 1. Okay, I don't get it. It makes no sense. It's stupid. Halfway through into number 5, worst Easter ever. Okay, from an in-universe perspective, in Security Breach, Vanny brought back seemingly this Earth's most prolific killer. But from a story perspective, it also kinda comes out of nowhere and feels forced. And in a game sense, he also just looks terrifying and then sends all the broken animatronics after us. And lore-wise, Afton's back again. However, he's also not entirely back this time, considering how this version actually seems to finally be dead, however only functional because maybe the coded version of Afton's consciousness is inside the animatronic. No matter what, this shouldn't have worked. He shouldn't have been able to have a sentient code form possessed Vanny, but then also be able to be present in his actual body. Like what? Unless this entire time after getting spring locked, his consciousness was instantly turned into a code, and that was then controlling the Springtrap suit, and in a way I guess would make sense. I mean, it would make a lot more sense than him being possessed by the spirit of his son. But from everything we've gotten, including Ultimate Custom Night and the man in room 1280, he was possessed, but to be kept alive so he could keep suffering, okay? Meaning that none of this should have worked. But it did, and it forsprung. So this absolute animatronic genius, the technician that made these suits, that handles the maintenance and has explained to every employee that has put on one of these things on like the proper procedure for the spring lock suits and making sure that it doesn't, you know, snap and then kill you, including the spring bodysuit that he uses to kill, ends up climbing inside the suit in a panic in an attempt to make himself feel more powerful. But somehow he's so smart that he didn't notice the leaking goddamn ceiling, which is already a health hazard, which you should have noticed beforehand. But then this also causes the spring locks that were active to snap shut, which would have killed him. However, this lucky mother hubber somehow managed to get possessed by someone who was so pissed at him that they kept him alive through all of his supposed to be deaths because they wanted William to suffer. Did they not realize how counterintuitive that is? The man literally wants to live forever, and you are enabling him to do so. Old Man Consequences is right. Leave the demon to his demons. Rest your own soul so that Afton could finally die and then actually suffer in hell for all of eternity, instead of a goddamn dream version that you made up when he was recharging underneath the Pizzaplex, or before he showed up in FNAF 6, or whenever you were goddamn torturing him with all this fake hell you made up. God damn it! Getting close to the end in number 3, first victim. They say that a killer's first victim is the most important, since it might indicate what really got them to start killing, or other psychological clues that they can use to predict his next moves. But in the case of William Afton, his first victim was the daughter of his longtime business partner Henry, which is hella messed up because she was 3 at the time. And while we may have talked about how Henry dropped the ball before, this was the year that Afton's life started going downhill in the worst of ways. Cause like he started killing off kids, and then he sticks with that MO throughout the rest of the criminal career, then like he also loses his kids after that. But the fact that his first victim was someone who trusted him, who didn't really suspect him of anything even though her father did, is something that I fear. But ultimately, in number 2, baby. This guy is actually the luckiest mother alive. This girl was killed by a robot her father made that was specifically designed to kill. She was then locked away in an underground storage unit where she was regularly shocked and tortured by scientists, technicians that William probably hired so that they could try and find out the answers to why she's possessed. She goes through all of this, is locked underground for like 45 years at least, and then goes on to try to make her father proud in FNAF 6. She literally says, quote, "I will make proud, daddy," while her father is literally in the building with her. Girl, this man is the reason you are dead. Literally, there is no debate about it here. This is 100% William's fault. And the fact that he didn't put a blacklist of people not to kill only makes this more on him. But you still want to make him proud? And finally, and at number 1, the Palladium rule. I will stand by this until the day I die. And you know what? I used to call it the Platinum rule, but now it's the Palladium rule because it's a meme and I love it. The most ridiculous but luckiest thing that has ever happened in FNAF was the fact that William Afton killed people in his own place of business and then didn't get caught. I don't know if this was always his intention, but like, who the absolute living hell would think that this is a good idea? Seriously, even if it's a TV show, okay, How I Met Your Mother does have some good lessons. One of those is Barney's Platinum rule, which is if you have to see the person every day because you work with them or they live in an apartment next door to you, okay, don't engage in some form of relationship, okay, because come a breakup, which is statistically probable, it just results in awkwardness and pain. And while this isn't the exact same thing, you are at this building all the time. Your name is a part of the company, so why would you think that this is a good idea? Literally go anywhere else, okay? You ended up even getting banned while there was an investigation underway. I don't get it.
Number 10, Mermaid Chica. I don't think we really needed like a Chica mermaid, and yet that's something we got. Mermaid Chica appears in Security Breach, and she's actually originally from Help Wanted. She was more creepy looking there actually, which is kind of awkward in its own way. But in Security Breach, Glamrock Mermaid Chica only appears as a cutout, and she is looking weirdly attractive and flirty? I don't know if it's just me seeing that, but her design has definitely been made less creepy and more cute at the very least. This version of Chica also doesn't have a cupcake, but instead has an oyster to supplant her little animatronic cupcake sidekick. And if you didn't already know, we have a new channel that you need to check out. It's the next biggest thing, and you'll want to be one of the first 100,000 subscribers, trust me. It's Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Press pause, go sub, then come back and join me as we count down. Number 9, getting the Fazwatch. Another strange thing in the world is when you as Gregory berate Glamrock Freddy for talking so loudly. One, it's pretty awkward how inherently rude Gregory seems here and just in general. Freddy only seems to want to help, but Gregory constantly criticizes him for doing even that, complaining that the booming volume of his voice could all too easily attract the security guard Vanessa, who Gregory does not trust and doesn't want to find him, which kinda also seems suspicious. What are you hiding, Gregory? Why don't you want security to find you? But the other weird thing is that before this, you were in Freddy's chest cavity, and in order for him to communicate with you without being outright heard, he decides to give you a Fazwatch. Now where does he keep said Fazwatch? Well, also in his chest cavity, which implies that during the time that you were in there before, you were actually sharing that very small space with a crank and a gift box, which is how you get the Fazwatch. Even though when you look in, to take that Fazwatch, it looks like this device takes up the entire space of Freddy's chest cavity. So how is that possible? Or does he just make Fazwatches appear out of thin air? I don't know. Physics. Number 8. Climbing inside Freddy. Another weird part of this entire thing, despite it being super cool as well, is actually climbing inside Freddy. That is because it definitely seems like you would not be able to fit inside his chest cavity. Even minus, like I said, the crank and the gift box, which are removed after you get the Fazwatch from Freddy. Still, even with that space cleared, it just looks way too small for how big the character is supposed to be. It kind of makes me think they should have designed Glamrock Freddy to just be like basically a giant booming character. He's already pretty giant, but I just feel like he needs to be even larger, so the scaling would work better in your mind. But also, then he'd probably be like way more intimidating and kind of scary, and they probably wanted to make sure he stayed, you know, kind of like approachable and friendly looking, since he's supposed to be kind of like your pal in the game. So I get it, but it still is super awkward because it doesn't feel like it makes any spatially logical sense for at least enough for this to even be possible. Number 7. Freddy teleporting. This was something that was later fixed in the game, but initially it was kind of like a glitch, or really just a choice in terms of the game's programming that was really creepy. Originally, when you summoned Glamrock Freddy, he would just appear near you. He wouldn't have to run over from where he was previously, but instead would be able to just like kind of shortcut to where you were by seemingly teleporting to your side as Gregory in the game, usually appearing behind you so that it didn't seem like he necessarily teleported. It would be like, no one's there, there's Freddy. So a little weird. This wasn't in canon teleporting, at least I don't think it was intended to be that way anyways. Just a choice made by the game designers on how Freddy would appear near you when you called him and you needed him. Later on, this was patched and changed so that when Freddy came, you could always pretty much see him running up as opposed to sneaking up behind you, which admittedly was a little creepy and awkward, but was maybe a bit more convenient too. Also, I don't even know if it was less creepy and awkward than Freddy like charging towards you, which is also kind of scary, admittedly. Number 6. Having a crush on Chica. Obviously, we all have a crush on Chica. There's nothing awkward about that, right? But there is something really awkward about how much Gregory seems to enjoy doing harm to animatronics. That for sure is awkward. Case in point, when we are forced as Gregory to get Chica into the trash compactor so we can literally have a crush on her by crushing her. Not only do you as Gregory turn on the trash compactor with Chica in it either, but you are also forced to literally push her into it and then watch as she's crushed right before your eyes. Though really, you'd think backing up here would make more sense. As a result of staying there to watch, you actually end up being dragged down into the garbage chute, and all because Gregory seems to be more obsessed with watching Chica like get crushed up close after pushing her in than his own safety. Which is also in itself pretty awkward and disturbing. Like, I love how Gregory pushes her and then he's just like, yes, yes, be destroyed. Gregory is definitely gonna grow up to be an interesting adult.
Halfway through into number 5, not a snitch. Okay, I don't know how Gregory survived Security Breach in general, alright? There were plenty of times that this kid could have got. Particularly though, when Freddy gets grabbed by the Moondrop animatronic right outside parts of service. You're telling me that Moondrop, the daycare attendant, the guy who has been chasing us every hour on the hour, told Vanessa that Freddy was in the parts and service room, but didn't mention that we were in the recharge station right next to it? He knew we were there. He waved at us while taking Freddy away. And then Vanessa talks to Freddy as if she doesn't know that we're listening in. It's almost like they're putting on a show. Like, sure, the daycare attendant isn't able to get us while we're in a recharge station, but we clearly aren't visible to him. He waved. So why wouldn't he also inform Vanessa about a kid in the recharge station while also saying, oh yeah, and I got Freddy? Okay, and if he did, why not bring that up when talking to Freddy instead of just asking him if he's helping us? Okay, it doesn't make sense. Daycare attendant not ratting on us is definitely a lucky moment, okay? I guess maybe he knows that snitches get stitches and that Gregory will tear him limb from limb with a smile on his face if he did, so maybe that's how it works. And for destruction. Speaking of tearing animatronics limb from limb, isn't it convenient that there is a way to break every other animatronic that isn't Freddy, and then that leaves the animatronic broken in the right way to remove whatever aspect that you actually needed to upgrade Freddy? Hell yeah, it is. It's so lucky that there is somehow a way to break each of the animatronics in the perfect amount for the animatronics, as well, okay? And it works the first time. And even with Chica, okay, we push her into a trash compactor and somehow don't get crushed ourselves, despite her grabbing onto our leg, okay? We only get pulled into another area that we can still get back to the Pizzaplex through, instead of being pulled into the trash compactor and crushed. So yeah, needless to say that looking at it logically, it's extremely lucky that there is a way to destroy each of the evil animatronics in a way that allows us to access their specific upgrades. Even though we didn't need to crush the animatronics, and instead it could have just chilled in Freddy's green room until 6 AM when the doors opened. So yeah, lucky us! Getting close to the end, and at number 3, fire. Alright, so during the true ending, otherwise known as the Afton ending or the Burn Trap ending or whatever you want to call it ending, we have to fend off Burn Trap's attempts to take control over Freddy by setting him on fire using what I'm guessing are the mechanisms that Henry used to set fire to the FNAF 6 location. However, I mean, it's pretty convenient how we fall into the room that we need to in this case, with monitors set up connected to the cameras in the various rooms that Burn Trap enters exclusively, with buttons that light the fires in those various rooms that correspond with the monitor, despite it being far more convenient for Henry to light everything at the same time with one button. Think about it, okay? How are these working still? It's clearly been a while, okay? Based on some comments, apparently the Pizzaplex has been open for at least 4 years, which I don't know if it's accurate, but if it is, these cameras and old computers are still working 4 years after being set on fire. That was enough to ruin the building. Not to mention a sinkhole that had to open up underneath it since we have to travel down an elevator to get there, and like, how is it working after all of that? And if you say that it was Vanny, why make sure the fire systems are still working and then set them to be on separate buttons, okay? Plus, now, these computer monitors are literal dinosaurs. How did they work before the fire, let alone after? Yeah. Ultimately, in number 2, boy genius. The absolute mountain of knowledge that this kid has exceeds my own, okay? This kid is the size of a 4-year-old. He can fit inside Freddy, baby strollers, like popcorn kind of vending cart things that you can find around the Pizzaplex, and various other small areas. He's too small to drive one of the go-karts alone and has to get one of his, like, the instructor bot things, but he knows how to restart generators, operate a trash compactor. He's strong enough to restart generators, and he's also capable of driving a car, as well as identifying the car battery, connecting jumper cables on a car battery properly, and then using those to fix Freddy's recharging issue, okay? How does this make any sense? And how do they solve that issue in literally any other ending, okay? Because Freddy is still going to need to recharge every hour, supposedly, or at least he says that he does. I don't really believe that that's a story for another day. But like, how does this happen? Okay, how do they solve that issue? This kid knows more words than I do, but is somehow the size of a 4-year-old. Maybe even smaller, okay? It makes absolutely no sense. And this kid's weird superpower is what makes this game so confusing. It really only makes sense if he's a robot that's supposed to mimic a toddler who's been operational for decades and has been learning the whole time, okay? Or that Security Breach is really just a cleverly skinned Jimmy Neutron fan game, okay? Which one is more likely here? And finally, in at number 1, Free Roam Freddy. We've talked a lot about the parts and service section, okay? Because Gregory just seems to have gotten extremely lucky at multiple points in this chapter of the game, one after the other. However, the luckiest, I think, comes from after Vanessa leaves Freddy in parts and service. She says that it's so that his casing can be put on a new endo after either corporate gives the green light or they have someone on the clock who can actually just remove it and put it on someone else. But she doesn't seem to be suspicious that he's walking around Rockstar Row literally within like maybe 3 minutes if you've played the section before and don't mess up the memory game, okay? Like, who would have repaired him if not Gregory? There is literally no other living human in the Pizzaplex at this point, and the whole containment cylinder thing is to protect human beings. There are no staff bots in parts and service, and the reason you had to leave him there was because nobody else is working since it's after midnight. Why would Vanessa be so chill about Freddy walking around after that? I mean, like, she literally left him with his head removed, and if she assumed that somehow he did it himself, why wouldn't she then confine him to his room if he's that suspicious? Especially after just accusing him of helping to protect Gregory. It was something that confused me so much in my first playthrough, so I figured that Vanessa would pull us out of Freddy if we got too close. But I walked up to her to test it, and nothing. It would have been easy to make just a little modification to her code for this part of the game and make her actually be like, why are you here? Rip out Freddy. Or rip out Gregory, not Freddy. But like, come on, you could have made Vanessa a little bit more dangerous at this point, but no, okay? Gregory venting certainly isn't the only thing that's sus about about this game. Let me just say that.
Number 10, Friendly Fire. Oh boy, this is just, I don't know, it's just silly. It's less WTF admittedly, and we're just like, why though? So if you end up getting the Phaser Blaster, you can stun animatronics that are chasing you by shooting them in the eyes. This temporarily blinds them. That all makes sense to me. The other item you can get, the Phaz camera, works in a similar way with its flash. Also, that makes sense. And yet, you can also use this to stun your friend Glamrock Freddy. Why would you ever want to do that? Why is that even possible? Why is that even an option? Just how sadistic is Gregory? These are all the questions I'm left to ask myself, and unfortunately you, who chose to watch this video, this shouldn't even be an option in the game, and yet hey, it is. You can do it. Just because Gregory is probably kind of partly a jerk all the time. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Gaming, make sure you show us that you love us and that you want more FNAF content by hitting that like. Number 9, Traveling Around in Glamrock Freddy. Why is this weird to me? I mean, it's cool, but why is it weird? Well, because it really doesn't seem like there is enough room inside Freddy for you as Gregory to fit. And I still stand by this observation today. I've honestly been saying it since the release of this game, when we got to see the chest cavity and also get a sense for, you know, our own size as Gregory in the game. It just doesn't add up to me. And the claustrophobic side of myself kind of feels like, as cool as it is to move around more safely in Freddy and also in essence pilot him, that is cool, I personally would never want to climb inside of his chest, no matter how small or how big it was. That just seems like, no thank you. And definitely not if it is things like Phaz Watch is also in there that I gotta share space with. That part where it appears that you get out still confuses me. Did the Phaz Watch only appear like after, like moving up inside Freddy from another part of him, like a limb or something? Or was it there the whole time? If it was there the whole time, there's really no room. It really doesn't make sense. Number 8, What's in the Vent? One of the most actually terrifying moments comes from the Music Man who chases us in the vent. But also, I have some questions about this. Where did this Music Man come from? Why is he in the vent? Why is there a small and giant Music Man in this game? Is this little Music Man part of DJ Music Man's army? Like, does he have a bunch of them? That sounds horrifying. And still, why is he in the vent? The sequence where you are chased by the little Music Man through the vent feels somehow even more terrifying than being chased by a regular size animatronic, even though that should feel more threatening. And yet it also feels like a weird choice in terms of the narrative. But I guess in terms of creating a horrifying moment, the developers did succeed here, which is probably why Music Man is in the vent to begin with. But I don't know, maybe that's also his dressing room? After all, you know, the main stage animatronics all get dressing rooms, so I mean, do the other animatronics get dressing rooms? Do the wet floor signs, do they have a room they get to go to? They should at least get like a green room or something where they can just like chill and hang out, or a break room, you know? Number 7, Mega DJ Music Man. I can't believe this really happened in the game. Also, if we're talking about animatronics getting their own dressing rooms, like DJ Music Man would need like such a big dressing room. He's such a big animatronic. A giant Music Man. That was real life in this game. I was so convinced when we got our first look at the trailer that Music Man, the giant Music Man that we saw, was going to be some kind of like delusional moment. Like, we'd simply imagine that Music Man was bigger than he was, we'd hallucinate it, and honestly, when I found out about the Sleepy Time candy, that honestly seemed even more plausible. I was like, oh boy, Sleepy Time candy, whoo! But no, giant DJ Music Man is a real thing, and apparently he is usually a super nice guy, according to Glamrock Freddy. Super nice guy. However, in the game, he doesn't seem so nice when he's chasing you and your heart is thumping and you're literally running for your life. Yeah, DJ Music Man from Security Breach is still something that will haunt my nightmares today. It honestly kind of makes me wish he was some kind of hallucination or dream sequence in the game. I don't know, that would be more easy to accept, other than like, that's real life. That's horrifying. Number 6, ending the game early. I think one of the weirdest things that's built into this game is the ending the game early option. Like, the fact that we get that option, that's weird to me. That's just, it's an interesting thing to build in, and I don't fully understand really why they did. Like, I get having multiple different endings, because that's cool, but giving you even the option to leave at 6 AM and just like end the game when there is so much more to do in this game, and the game would be so short if you just stopped playing entirely there. I don't know, why is that an option? Did they add it in because they wanted people to have an out if they were too scared? And the real question, did anyone actually like full stop playing there? Let me know if you did, because I bet some people did do that, and those people would have drastically missed out, or did drastically miss out. That's why I don't even think the option should be available for us in game. It just seems weird.
How about doing a number 5, glitched Freddy? Alright, hear me out. It seems highly convenient that we just so happen to be at the show where Freddy glitches out, and that seemingly, as we're led to believe, this glitch is what causes him to refuse the Afton virus code thing. Like what? How? We're supposed to believe that this glitch, or this error is caused by Gregory, given the security threat message that pops up next to the silhouette of a child when we're actually like watching it from Freddy's perspective. But if that is true and we caused the glitch, how is a kid in a group full of kids a security threat when people are allowed to be in the Pizzaplex at this time? Like, sure, he didn't have a guest profile or whatever, but if Gregory was the glitch, wouldn't Freddy have glitched again after scanning us when we start the game? Honestly, I think that the hardest part to believe about this, strangely enough, is the fact that we were able to climb inside of Freddy while he was glitching out on stage without anyone noticing. Like, sure, maybe he wasn't on stage when we ended up climbing in, but a glitched animatronic is surely going to have some form of personnel around them so that they can get fixed up, especially when he is the headliner and it happened during a show. No way that he didn't go through parts and service before we actually end up meeting him in the first moments of the game. That's some strange, like, god level luck right there, okay? Is that really what happened? Jeez, that's some Talos level luck right there. Oh, praise mighty Talos. In at 4, Phaser Blaster. Okay, is it just me, or is a place like the Pizzaplex giving away a golden version of their laser gun totally far-fetched? Because that's the story that we're supposed to be believing when we get the blaster after winning. That winning this game was essential because it was the only way to obtain the prize of the Phaser Blaster that you can then run around and shoot people with. And when you do shoot those people, they will have a reaction no matter where you shoot them, as seen in the What If You Shoot Vanessa video here on YouTube. Which essentially means that this thing is a laser beam taser, okay? And I don't think that I should have to explain why that's a bad idea. So, why is not only this place giving away a laser taser, but also one that when shot disables your main feature animatronics? That seems like just literally the worst idea that you could think of. Almost as if they've never learned. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Moondrop. While there are plenty of times that Gregory could have been made in this game, particularly when Freddy gets grabbed by the Moondrop animatronic right outside of parts and service, that should have been it. You're trying to tell me that the daycare attendant, the dude who really wants to get us, told Vanessa that Freddy was in parts and service in the room or whatever, but didn't mention that we were in the recharge station that was right next to it? I mean, like, he knew we were there. He waved at us while taking Freddy away. What? Then, when she talks to Freddy, she's talking as if she doesn't know that we're listening in. It's almost like they put on a show. Like, sure, the daycare attendant isn't able to get us if we're in a recharge station, but we clearly aren't invisible to him because he literally waves at us. So why wouldn't he inform Vanessa about this while mentioning Freddy? And if he did, why not bring that up when talking to Freddy instead of just asking him if he's helping us? It doesn't make sense. The daycare attendant not ratting on us is definitely a lucky moment, but I guess, I don't know, maybe he knows that snitches get stitches, or maybe since Moondrop is such a damn creeper, he wanted to save us for himself. Oh god. But ultimately, into number 2, Destruction. Isn't it convenient that there is a way to break every animatronic that isn't Freddy, that leaves the animatronic broken in such a way that you can remove whatever aspect that you need to upgrade Freddy? Hell yeah it is. Like, it's so lucky that there is somehow a way to break each of these animatronics in like the perfect amount for the animatronics as well. There's no more and there's no less. We don't have to use the same thing twice. And it works the first time. Even like with Chica, okay? We push her into a trash compactor because she isn't actually crawling in, and then somehow we don't get crushed despite her grabbing onto us and trying to pull us with her. We only get pulled into another area of this mallplex thing that we can then get back to the main Pizzaplex through, instead of just being pulled into the trash compactor and having our heads explode. So yeah, needless to say that looking at it logically, it's extremely lucky that there is a way to destroy each of the evil animatronics in a way that allows us to get their specific upgrades, even though we didn't really need to crush the animatronics, and instead could have just chilled in Freddy's room until 6 AM when the doors opened. And finally, in at number 1, canon ending. During the true ending, or the Afton, burn trap ending, whatever the hell you want to call it, everything we experience is so freaking insanely lucky, like beyond even protagonist standards of luck. We have to fend off Burn Trap's attempts to take control over Freddy by setting him on fire using what are most likely the systems that Henry used to set the same building on fire in FNAF 6. I mean, it's incredibly thoughtful of the ground to only give out at the perfect moments that we fall into the room that we need to, with very easy to understand monitors set up connected to cameras in the various rooms that Burn Trap enters, and only those rooms, with buttons that light fires in the rooms that correspond to what the monitor sees. Plus, I mean, like, you really gotta think about it. How are these still working? It's clearly been a while. These cameras and old computers are still working for an unknown amount of years after being set on fire that was enough to ruin the building. Not to mention after falling into a sinkhole that had to open up beneath it. How is this all still working after that? And not only after that, but all of these computer monitors are literal dinosaurs. Like if you go into an abandoned school library, this is what you will see. How did they work before the fire, let alone after? Okay, my parents have a monitor like this and it doesn't work, and I'm certain we took better care of it than a decrepit pizza brand that's been set on fire multiple times. So I don't know how this happened. In at 10, paint cans. After starting the game and getting to the free roam section of Security Breach where you have the tutorial for distracting animatronics, I just want to mention how goddamn lucky that is, okay? Like, one of the animatronics that you're going to need to avoid, no matter how damn fine she is, you need to avoid her, is literally eating garbage right in your way, but somehow there's also a stack of paint cans randomly on a random cart in the middle of the hall in front of you. The cart is also for some reason blocking the hall, which I'm sure multiple employees love having to take the long way around, but it's fine that it's blocking the way because you can knock over these convenient and empty paint cans so that Chica will come and investigate it. I'd say her taking the way that she does is also lucky, however, this is like one of the only times where pathing makes sense since she's right next to the door that she ends up using, and I think that any other person in this situation would have done the same thing. However, one thing that I don't understand is in at 9, inconvenient exit. During the so-called interrogation and torture scene in Parts and Service, from what I've been seeing YouTube videos titled online, Vanessa is questioning Freddy about Gregory and accusing him of helping Gregory, which I mean is true, but she shouldn't have to actually accuse him of that, more on that later. But after telling him that she's gonna leave him down there until his casing can be put on a new endo, which doesn't really make sense if the coating is the issue and not the endoskeleton, like, still, why would you leave to go to Rockstar Row through Roxy's lift when you could easily have just turned around to come our way and head into the main atrium? That's where Gregory is for the majority of the game. That's where all the animatronics have been spotting him, and it would make more sense to go there than to Rockstar Row, where maybe he was seen twice at this point. I don't know, it seems weird to me, but the reason that this is lucky is because had she chosen to go the more logical route, which would have been towards us, she would have walked through the doors we were hiding behind, and it's not like we have much room to hide around them, okay? The walls on either side of this door are made of glass. She would see us run into the charging station or wherever else we went. So yeah, her choosing to exit in the most inconvenient way to her actually ends up helping us out. And at 8, Freddy. Just everything that Gregory does with Freddy seems to work out eventually, even if not at first. Look at what he does before the doors actually close the first time. He sends us to get a pass in order to free him from the green room, and then everything seems to be going well. But then for some random reason, without ever mentioning this before, he tells us that he senses that we are broken and that he needs to bring us to a medical tent so that he can fix us up. Whether this was meant to be a nod to Crying Child or not in this case doesn't matter. Point is here that it didn't do anything, okay? We get a run-in with Vanessa that later turns into a TikTok meme, but other than that, we stay the same, okay? We don't get healed, we don't get a band-aid because we could have had the one that's on his character from the start, and and we get in that booth, instantly turn around to watch the Vanessa and Freddy scene, and then after that we leave instantly and Freddy never mentions how we're still broken. And being broken, in this case, never seems to come up again or cause us any issues. Especially since now with that little pit stop, even if you go full steam ahead, you can't make it out of the front doors in time. That one little interaction is the 30 seconds that we needed in order to escape out the front doors, but thanks to Freddy, we didn't make it. But he still doesn't abandon us. He just tries to help. I mean, I don't know, it's off, okay? And if Freddy is evil, him not revealing it there and then is definitely lucky as hell. And it's 7, Vanny. There were a load of complaints about how Vanny was an underutilized villain, and I totally agree. She only shows up like maybe 5 times in the main story, but like every time she does, she seemingly is taunting us instead of actually pursuing us. Like sure, if she gets close enough she will charge, but in my mind that's just her thinking like, oh, I actually have a shot now, might as well try and grab him. But her just casually skipping while going after Gregory and then only really coming at him like 5 times in total is actually pretty solid luck on Gregory's part. Like she always seems to know where Gregory is when she does show up, so if she was around regularly we would have to constantly be on the move. And she also shows up whenever Gregory doesn't have access to Freddy, as if it's like she knows that he doesn't have access, which would only make this worse for him, but it's fine, which in my mind at least is pretty damn lucky. This is one lucky duck, let me tell you. And it's 6, Disassemble. In the Phaser Blast ending, the one where you push the button instead of playing Princess Quest 3, Gregory actually ends up ordering the robots to disassemble Vanny. Gregory being willing to kill Vanny here is pretty messed up. However, it's lucky that these staff bots even understood that command. Okay, Vanny is a human, not something that's typically seen as capable of disassembly, okay? When a serial killer hacks up a body, okay, the police don't say that the victim was disassembled, they say they were dismembered, okay? This guy kills Vanny and then only gets emotional when he has to go talk to a destroyed Freddy. Okay, like dude, okay, Vanny is literally bleeding out next to you. We saw what happened to Freddy, okay? That was the disassembly. So yeah, couldn't you just have said like stop or restrain Vanny? Particularly stop, okay? You didn't have to say freaking disassemble. I get that she said that about Freddy and it was fresh in your mind, but dude, okay? You're not panicking about literally anything else. And if the robots hadn't understood that command because, humans aren't disassembled, then it would have caused you a hell of a lot of pain. It worked on Freddy because robots can be disassembled because they get assembled in the first place. But now I am definitely going to start calling pregnancy assembling a human now, so that's fun. Thanks for that.
Number 5, taking Roxy's eyes. It doesn't end with crushing Chica. It really only continues to get worse from there. Although I guess if, like me, Chica is one of your favorite animatronics, then it already starts out pretty bad. I don't know about you, but I really didn't want to crush Chica. With Roxy, at least for many of us, she's kind of like one of the most annoying characters in this game. Although, of course, if there are any major Roxy fans out there, please let me know in the comments. If you actually happen to like Roxy, that's cool too. If you don't find her annoying, that's fine, but she kinda annoying. With Roxy though, we literally need to take her eyes out of her head, which is, well, there's no other way to say it, it's pretty gruesome. And once again, Gregory does this all by himself, which is disturbing. Awkward and disturbing. I mean, we don't see it, but we hear it. We know what's happening. Number 4, confessing to Freddy. Another bizarre thing that happens in the game happens as the result of you as Gregory stealing all the animatronics parts to, upgrade Freddy with. You basically have to confess to Glamrock Freddy at one point that yes, you stole these pieces from the bodies of his friends. Basically, dismembering and mutilating them. Which, yeah, it doesn't sound too good, does it? It's already awkward enough to have to do this in-game and watch as Gregory does so almost with seeming delight, but then to hear how casually Gregory plays off, sharing where these pieces came from, and to hear Freddy be so sad about it, oh boy, it's an awkward conversation to listen in on, never mind technically be a part of. Freddy's like, my friends, and you're like, well, you know how it is. Sometimes I gotta destroy your friends, Freddy, just don't worry about it. I'll be your friend. I'll be your friend. Number 3, Vanny defeated. The ending where you can just choose to go for Vanny is like a weird one. Especially as it starts off with Freddy, as you finally have the option to leave the Pizzaplex, asking you if you want to stay, leave, or you can also choose Vanny. The choice is yours. Will you stay or go, Gregory? Vanny. Lol, what a strange response even. Vanny. If you choose Vanny as a bizarre answer to a question that had nothing to do with her really, then you will go after Vanny, attempting to get her where her home base is in the game at Phaser Blaster. Once there is no way to play through this apprehension really. It kinda just happens, with you not really getting much of a say in how it plays out. You're more a witness than an active participant, I would say. Freddy is immediately taken off the board, and then you're forced to pursue Vanny and order her loyal animatronics to turn on her, dismantling her to defeat her. What is so messed up about that? Well, you're dismantling her, and she's not an animatronic, she's like a flesh and blood person. So that's pretty messed up. Dismantling. Number 2, comic book endings. One of the weird things about Security Breach in general is the endings that we get where we don't even really get complete like animations or cinematics. Instead we get some like moving comic book pages. It just seems weird and awkward that the rest of the game is like really polished and yet they decided to go with this for all of the endings. Like you don't even really get to play through them, even though they seem to have parts to them in terms of the story that seem like they would actually be kind of fun to play. I'm not sure if this is just a weird style choice or if this was just because, you know, they didn't want to spend the time or money incorporating the ending scenes into the same style of animation and gameplay as the rest of the game, and or making them like, you know, just more playable in general, as opposed to something that you just kind of watch happen in a comic book form and then you're like, well, I guess that's the ending. Cool. Number 1, the elevator. Probably one of the most awkward parts of Security Breach is the elevator interludes. When you have to get in the elevator with Freddy and you're just kinda there for a while. Especially because as soon as you're in close quarters, it becomes clear how weird and freaky Freddy is just in general. As soon as you're forced to focus on him, you'll notice how he creepily just like stares at you, almost obsessively, and because you're in close quarters, Glamrock Freddy will continuously kinda just open and then close his chest cavity, preparing or like offering for you to like jump inside it. It just seems really sinister, even though he's your friend and you know Freddy wouldn't harm you, but you can't help but question this odd behavior, or at least you're definitely freaked out by it. It's just a weird time. I feel like when I'm in the elevator I'm like, just don't look at Freddy, look anywhere else.